Morikawa would be proud with this particular deck.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another deck profile on the channel, and today we're going to discuss one of the two main strategies that we can apply with the new Bermuda Triangle cards. And today's focus is going to be completely around the Melody engine, so basically all the great frees with the Melody skills. And what's interesting about this archetype, or keyword support, is that it focuses completely around great frees that can boost each other while being on the field, and as long as they all have the Melody keyword, they can benefit from all kinds of skills that they can pass to one another. And in this particular case, we can see great frees with power up increase, boosting abilities, intercept with shields, maybe even on place effects, hit effects, and all kinds of crazy interactions that we can see with this new Melody archetype. But at the same time, it's a very interesting approach to deck building, as seen as the main focus is around great frees, and you usually don't want to have that many great frees in your deck list, otherwise the consistency of riding up to your great free might be in a little bit of a pickle, as seen as we're dropping the amounts of grade 1s and grade 2s. So as you're going to see in this deck list, there is a difference in distribution between the different grades and with the mainly focus around the grade 3. So without further ado, let's jump right into this deck profile and see how this deck is going to function and all kinds of things that we can do and how powerful this new Melody deck is going to be. So for this Bermuda Triangle Melody deck profile, we run a total of 12 grade 3s, 11 grade 2s, 10 grade 1s, and 17 grade 0s. For the deck list, we run a total of 3 copies of Colorful Pastel Sonata. This is one of the main right targets that we want to go into, as seen as she can fetch another Melody with her main Vanguard skill. And overall, her Melody ability makes our columns very threatening and powerful. The next up, we also run 3 copies of Colorful Pastel Carol, and she makes all our Melody grade 3s be able to boost. And this enables us to make grade 3 columns that are going to hit for high, as seen as she also gives power to the boosting grade 3 Melody unit. And also it's pretty good right target, as seen as she can fetch herself from the deck, so that's another +1 on Melody cards that we can then use to fill out the field. Then next up, we also run 3 copies of Colorful Pastel Vina, and this grade 3 makes our Melody grade 3s be able to intercept as well as gaining 10k shield. So with this card we have still the ability to have some defense capabilities, as seen as we're running multiple grade 3s that have by nature 0 shield value. Only her Vanguard skill isn't really that interesting in this particular deck profile, but it's still an interesting thing that can combine with some other cards. The next up, we run 2 copies of Colorful Pastel Cannon. This grade 3 allows us to have some endgame potential, as her Vanguard skill is very threatening when we're going to hit with 3 high columns, as they are going to be forced to waste at least 6 cards, but as soon as they are so high powered, they're probably going to waste a perfect guard. But with every perfect guard, they need to now discard another card, so that can potentially be 9 cards out of an opponent's hand. And probably not everybody can deal with that late game, so this can definitely be a finisher if we time it correctly. And with her own Melody skill, everything gets a potential soul charge, so we can fuel her own Vanguard skill. And lastly, we run 1 copy of Colorful Pastel Serena, and this is basically an out card when everything goes wrong, as her Melody skill allows us to refill our hand when we're sitting at a low hand size, and we're probably only sitting at a low hand size when things are going sour, so she can help with that. And with her Vanguard skill, it allows us to fetch 3 Melody cards from the drop zone back to her hand, so we can fill out the field once again with a new filled Melody field. Then for grade 2s, we run 4 copies of Choco Love Heart Liselot. This is one of the strongest early rush cards, as it can put out on the field even on grade 1, and it can get another card onto the field or get a card into our soul to fuel our Vanguard skills, like the ones for Carol and Cannon. So Liselot is a versatile card for different scenarios, and it's a good early game pressure 2 card against our opponent. The next up, we run 4 copies of Blue Silver Diva Broom, and she is another card that can enable us to cycle faster through a deck, as she can potentially draw cards with her unhit ability, but at the same time it's an annoying card for our opponent to deal with, as she is a 15k attacker, or in this case a 15k powered unit during our opponent's turn. So it's a little bit tougher to remove from the field. Then lastly, we run 3 copies of Master Cover Mine. I already talked about this card in multiple videos and also in our previous set breakdown video. This card enables us to cycle fast through our decks, and in case with this particular deck list, we run multiple cards with the same card name, so we probably gonna plus of her. Then for the grade 1s, we of course run 4 copies of Top Star Shield. This is one of the best consistency bump for the deck, deck as soon as we can get more melody cards to our hand. And that's just really good, as with the top 7 check, with this many grade 3s, you're bound to hit every single one of them. The next up, we run 4 copies of Rini Ter Stessa. This is another great card for the Melody engine, as soon as we run a lot of grade 3s and we want to keep getting grade 3s to our hand, and our opponent is probably killing multiple of them. So we're probably going to be able to use her complete skill so we can plus 2 out of it, and that is pretty good. And finally, we run 2 copies of Special Message Aurora. This is a great cycle card, as we then can drop cards that we don't need and then go faster through a deck to get the cards that we need, and mainly the melody card. And for Grid Zeros, we of course run the normal starter, and for the trigger lineup, we run 4 heals, 8 crits, and 4 draw RPGs, making a total of 12 grade 3s, 11 grade 2s, 10 grade 1s, and 17 grade 0s. This deck has no combos or intricate plays whatsoever. You're basically doing 2 things. 1, trying to beat down your opponent with a massive melody board, and 2, drawing and cycling through your deck to get the set melody board, and in meantime, you're also pressuring them with good tempo. You have a lot of units that use a variety of resources, especially your grade 3s, but those skills are all Vanguard centric, so in most scenarios you won't use them. The highly likely skills you would use are Sonata, Caro, and Cannon. Cannon can fix a lot of soul issues and can fuel the soul for her skill as well as Caro, but more importantly CL. Lieselot can also help with filling your soul. Counterblast is another resource which is used by many units, but all 4 units uses it to plus in some way. We don't have a counter charge in this deck, so use them wisely. Sonata's skill is one of the more aggressive side, as it helps with filling a melody board, but CL can do that too without the counterblast. Broom is just a generic unhit, but it gives good pressure against your opponent. Mine is a great way to cycle quickly through your deck and to put excess amount of grade 3s back into your deck so you can draw them with CL, or putting triggers back so you can drive check them. Stessa is another great tool to put grade 3s back into your deck to fuel your melody board. Try to understand which counterblast skill is more suited for your current situation. This deck has one main strategy, and that is to build the strongest melody board to beat over your opponent. During the early game, you're cycling through your deck as fast as you can to get all your grade 3s, and when possible, you also put some extra pressure on the board so they will go to a high damage count as quickly as possible. Although your main focus is that you want to have a lot of grade 3s so you can build a full melody board, it is actually better to start a hand with only 1 grade 3 or at a maximum only 2. And in some cases, starting without can even be better. The reason for that is 1, you're running a lot of grade 3s, so you will draw into them eventually. And 2, you have a lot of draw effects and searchers. Another problem with a hand filled with grade 3s is that your early game will suffer, and that is not something you wish to happen, because yes, you will hit hard when you get to grade 3, but if they're sitting at 1 damage, then the first 2 turns will mean nothing, as they can just tank some hits. Big numbers mean nothing if they can't kill. This will change of course once Force 2 will come out. So what you want to do is to try to have an opening hand that can pressure early but still go into a melody board late game. You can open up with 2 grade 3s if you have Stessa and Aurora. With Aurora you can discard a grade 3, and next turn with Stessa you can draw an extra card by putting that card back to deck. Effective cycle while putting more cards onto the field. Master Cover Mine is a great cycle card, but she can be so much more. Her alternate effect is seen as a bad thing because you're minusing for a counterblast. But because you send cards back to the deck, you can take advantage of this effect. This deck draws a lot of cards, which means you will draw a lot of triggers. If you go into your kill turn with Cannon's guard restriction, you can use Mine to put 3 triggers back into your deck to increase the chance of getting triggers. Mine is also great in a deck out scenario because you're putting 3 cards back into your deck, and this will increase your deck size by 1, which can buy you a turn or allow you to attack with your Vanguard 1 extra time, which can make a big difference. It's a melody deck, so we have to talk a little bit about the melody cards. Your main units you want to have on the field are Sonata, Carol, and Fina. This way, all your grade 3 front row units can intercept, all back row units can boost, and all melody cards gain a ton of power. So try to keep 1 copy of these units onto the field at all times. Cannon is a nice addition with the soul setup, but she's mainly here as a finisher. Her Vanguard skill can end games, especially in the protect matchups. Serena is the only one that falls behind, as soon as she's here as a safety net when everything goes south. She can then help you recover on the board. For the Melody build, there are a ton of other options, and here are some that might spark your interest. In terms of Great Freeze, you can drop Serena and Cannon if you want to run 4 offs of Sonata, Carol, and Fina. That's perfectly fine if you just want to do that. I would recommend to keep the Great Free total around at 12 cards, as it helps make CL a lot better in general, and the Melody cards are better with more Melody cards. But you don't want to overdo it, as when you're running too many Great Frees, you're going to have some issues with consistency write-up problems. For Great 2s, you can look at Devoted Time Inashta. She can be a great 10k booster for your Great Frees, and she is able to intercept from the back row so you don't lose on shield value. Reverberator Dias can also become another high powerful card besides your Melody cards, and she is also extra shield value in your deck. And Green's Energy Saria is also a potential high attacker, as she can allow you to go all in with your triggers on your Vanguard during a 2-tap pass, as soon as she can still get the power benefit from those triggers in those scenarios. So she makes it even harder for your opponent to guard against all your attacks. For good ones, you can play Fluffy Wonder Prune for more aggressive power, or when you need a bit more counterblast, you can play Equable Careers Piana. And for triggers, you can run a bit more draws if you want to increase the chance of getting the pieces you need. Bermuda Triangle comes with a very unique deck, a build focused around Great Freeze. And although it looks and sounds gimmicky, this deck is everything but that. It's a scary powerhouse of a deck that can generate soul saver numbers while generating advantage, and because of that, Bermuda Triangle is here to stay, even without support for another year. And with that, we conclude this deck profile, and that's basically all the basics that you need to know while going into a Bermuda Triangle Melody deck. And as stated before in the video, there are some different kinds of approaches that you can take with different focus on different Great Frees, as well as different support cards. But overall, it is a very strong and solid deck that can pump out pressure from out the get-go and going into high numbers, while at the same time retain some defensive capabilities. But it has some issues, as seen as you're running a lot of Great Frees, so it can be possible that your hand is filled with a lot of Great Frees, and if your opponent is rushing you back, you might succumb to that. But overall, very fun and interesting deck that we can now try out with the new Bermuda Triangle support, and I'm very curious what you guys think of this deck profile or Melody in general, and how you're going to build the deck. Are you going to plan more on defensive capabilities or more consistencies, as there are tons and tons of different ways that we can build this deck, and this is just one of many possibilities. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters over at Patreon for making this video possible. If you too want to support the channel, as well as get exclusive access to some exclusive content over at Patreon, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Timeleap. I see you guys in the next one.